what your country can do for you. Ask what you can do for your country.
We have to rise above challenges and find strength in the midst of adversity.
We are in a battle of good versus evil.
Satan is the father of confusion.
I don't care what they do to me. I'm going to keep calling them out.
They're berserk trying to disarm Americans, and we need to push back.
I'm glad you're fighting for America.
There's always hope.
Relish the opportunity to be an outsider, because it's the outsiders who change the world.
Perhaps you were born for such a time as this. Hello, everybody, and welcome to Faith and Freedom. I'm Shemane Nugent. You know, American colleges and universities were once known to be the best in the world. But now there's an undeniable shift, and many have lost faith in those schools and are calling them training grounds for radical leftists, saying they're pushing a Marxist ideology. Joining me now live is the author of American Gulags, Marxist Tyranny in Higher Education and What You Can Do About It, Lieutenant Colonel Oliver North. Oliver, welcome.
Shemane, it's great to see you again.
Good to see you too. I think it's been 30 years. How long?
You weren't even alive back then.
Oh, please. Oh, please. Ted and I were on your radio show. It had to be about 25 years ago or more. Yeah. Long time ago.
Yeah.
So
and we had a great time. And I love doing radio. It's a lot more spontaneous than TV. And podcast is right up there at the top. Yeah.
I do miss that, because you don't have to worry about how you look if you got video and all the problems we had before we got on here. So, but I do appreciate this platform, because I'm going to talk to you about this. I lost my First Amendment. I don't have the freedom of speech. I'm banned on several platforms. Imagine that. I'm banned on Twitter and Ted's not. What is that? But let's talk about you. Let's talk about your new book and the decline of our once revered and highly acclaimed colleges and university. What happened?
Well, it all started when we decided we would be woke. By the way, the real definition of the word woke is warning our kids endangered. That's where we are today in education in this country. What it is Marxism that's dividing people against each other. The rich versus the poor, capitalists versus socialists, workers versus employers, colored versus white, LGBTQ plus, whatever it is, straight versus those of us who believe that what we learned as kids ought to still be taught to kids and not this other crap. So it's Asian versus Anglo, it's young versus old, green versus pro-carbon, pro-life versus pro-abortion. And it all started back in the 1960s with Engel versus Vitale, New York public school prayer and public schools case. My dad was on that school board, okay? And he'd been succeeded by a fellow by the name of Vitale. And they took in New York State, Engel was an atheist, took Vitale, the school board president, to court, because they believed that the public school prayer that we uttered in 1961, I was in the last high school class in America that could say the prayer, and I still remember it. Almighty God, we acknowledge our dependence upon you and beg your blessings on us, our parents, and our teachers. Amen. Okay? That was what was declared to be unconstitutional. The following year, 1962, the Supreme Court backed it up, and so we started driving God out of the public square. And so this book, Gulags in America, is an op plan. It's an operations plan written by 3 U.S. Marines on how American parents can take back our educational system from kindergarten all the way through postgraduates. And my perspective is, I'll be very selfish about it. I'm the grandfather of 18 grandkids, 11 boys, 7 girls. Our kids are no longer being educated. They're being indoctrinated. They aren't being taught how to think. They're being taught what to think. 3 short answers to all of these things. What the American people have got to do, and what started this was all during the COVID lockdowns, parents were getting to see firsthand from the kids sitting at the dining room table or the kitchen table what the kids are being taught. And it scared
and what they're not,
most of it.
And what they're not being taught. In your book, I have it here in my hands, as Ted would say, my greasy little hands. On page 6, you write, because of Marxist indoctrination and the dumbing down phenomenon, many high school students currently graduate unprepared for college, the workplace, or the military.
All true. The fact is, we now graduate more youngsters who couldn't get into the military than those who can. One, because of obesity, drug use, crime, or just they're totally incompetent at the kinds of things that it takes to be able to be a person in the armed forces, soldier, sailor, airman, guardsman, or Marine. And what we've now realized is that's affecting the rest of our society too. So what this book has is those 8 chapters in this book is all about what parents need to do to take back our educational system for our kids. And I'm selfish. Those 18 grandkids, 2 are college graduates, the youngest is still in diapers. The idea that we're going to send them off to school to be indoctrinated. They're being told what to think instead of how to think. And this book is the answer to that. Each chapter has the steps the parents ought to be taking. For example, go to the school board meetings, for crying out loud. Better yet, run for a school board. Almost all of the school boards in America are elected. In Loudoun County, right next to where I am, in tiny little Clark County, Virginia. Parents started to do that, and the superintendent of schools had them thrown out for demanding answers to why a man dressed in a skirt was in the girls' room to rape his daughter. Not only that, but they secretly moved the kid, the male, to another school, and he did it again. Those are the kinds of things that parents ought to be standing up for, and they did in Clark County. Clark County was one of the reasons why we now have a governor in Virginia for the first time in way too long who's standing up for the parents of America's children here in Virginia. And they're demanding real history lessons, not the fact that somebody's decided that we're a racist nation. They want to teach kids what critical race theory in schools. Just because you're white and I'm white does not make us racists. And the idea that we're going to teach kids that, and we had been in Loudoun County schools, thank God not here in Clark County, but that's the kind of thing that has got to stop, and it's going to take parents to do it. That's why this book is out there, not just for elementary school, all the way through colleges and postgraduate school.
I homeschooled my son on 2 different occasions, and I loved it. It was such a great, not only bonding experience, but everything became a lesson. And I know now, unfortunately, what's gone on with our society is it's divided the family unit, and there's a lot of single working moms out there that they've got to support their kids, so they got to work. So it's created an unfathomable situation. How do we get out of this?
Well, I honestly do believe that what we can do is elect people to office at every level. You don't have to run for president of the United States. How about running for the school board? How about running for a county board of supervisors? I do very little political stuff nowadays, but I just went last week to a fundraiser for a man running for the county board of supervisors, and there was a big crowd of folks there. And by the way, we did it at a 5-stand shotgun shoot. And by the way, we still have a Second Amendment here in Virginia. That's the good news. And again, that's Governor Youngkin and his attorney general are standing up for the kinds of things that you and I grew up with. At least I did. And as I say, back in 1961, we weren't teaching porn in elementary schools. Sex education for 3rd graders is unconscionable. I ought to fire the drag queens in the public schools. And the answer, it's in this book, follow the money. School budgets, whether it's in elementary school, middle school, or high school. How many administrators involved in counseling kids that God put you in the wrong body do you have in your school system? Those are questions that every parent ought to be asking. You got to go to the same thing. Demand more stem cell education. STEM, science, technology, education, engineering, and math. That education can teach skills that make a high school graduate employable with a good job, by the way. And I will tell you right now, I've got a son-in-law who's a doctor, and he says his plumber and his electrician make more per hour than he does. Those are good jobs.
Wow.
We got to stop contributing to colleges, even though if it's your alma mater, if their syllabus looks like a bovine fecal matter splat. I'm trying to keep my language straight here so I don't get blacked out too. The bottom line of it is parents haven't looked at those kinds of things, and they contribute money to colleges and to private schools. Betsy, at one point or another, as we moved around the Marine Corps, homeschooled every one of our 4 kids. And every one of those kids benefited from that. And she paid attention after these, you shift from one place to another. You got a military school, a religious school, a private school, a public school. But they came out of it because their mom, and I can't take credit because I was gone. When we celebrated our 50th anniversary here 5 years ago, kid said, "Mom, how did you put up with him for that long?" And she said, he was gone for more than half the time. And she was right. But I married up. I married a Proverbs 31 woman. And
good for you.
Just exactly the right way.
Oh, that's so sweet. Happy anniversary. Now, for people who want to send their kids to school, I agree with you. Learning a trade is better, but I know Hillsdale is good. Are there any other good ones out there?
Sure, Liberty University. I'm just right off the top of my head. Liberty University, right down the road from where I am right now. Great school. All kinds of them are out there. And the idea that, yes, you have courses, elective courses, that you can take that will give you the history of Christianity or the history of Judaism or the history of the country. But you don't have to take that class that says, oh, by the way, you're in the wrong gender. You can play God. You can change your gender. Those are the kinds of things that, quite frankly, every chapter of this book has advice on how to deal with those kinds of problems. And that's what's made it such a great success. Here we are in the middle of summer. School's going to start again here in Virginia right at the end of August. We're less than a month away. Parents need to be paying attention. And the kids that are going off to college need to pay attention to the courses. Does the syllabus require them to take these kinds of courses? I mean, one of the reasons why college education has gotten so expensive is they've hired drag queens to teach classes. Yeah. The people that are running America's colleges and universities today are the ones who are burning their draft cards when I was getting shot at in Vietnam.
It's, I just keep shaking my head. I have a constant pain in my neck because I'm shaking my head all the time. I want to switch gears just a little bit and get your thoughts on the NRA. You once served as president. My husband was on the NRA board of directors for 12 years. What are your thoughts about the NRA today?
Look, we need an NRA. I was fired as the president of the NRA because I asked for an outside independent audit to ensure that my fiduciary responsibilities as a board member and as essentially the chairman of the board of the NRA, all 76 members. And by the way, we used to seat ourselves at the board meeting alphabetically. So North and Nugent very often sat right next to each other. So,
that's great. I agree with you.
Tells you something. Yeah.
Kind of an unlikely coupling, but I love it. And I love you. I love what you're doing. Thank you so much for joining me today. Everybody go out and get this book, American Gulags. And where can I find it, Oliver?
Well, the best place to find it, I mean, you can get it in bookstores, you can get it over Amazon. But if you want to save money and get it faster, go to faithfultext.com. Faithfultext.com is our publishing. Fidelis, these are Marines that wrote this book, right? So 3 Marines. And Faithful Text is Semper Fidelis. Semper Fidelis is the motto of the United States, but it's more than that. It's also a way of life. And that's why 3 Marines teamed up to give this op plan to the American people. 8 chapters. There's not talking points. There's action points at the end of every chapter, and it's well worth it. And it's not that thick a book. You can breeze through this in 2 days if you really care about your kids.
I love it. Thank you so much, Oliver. God bless you and your family. And I hope to talk to you again soon.
Semper
Coming up,
Fidelis. God bless you.
God bless you. Coming up, the Chinese Communist Party is rewriting the Bible. Stay tuned.
Relish the opportunity to be an outsider because it's the outsiders who change the world.
Perhaps you were born for such a time as this. Hey friends, have you ever wondered why meat at the grocery store is always bright red? Well, that's because it's treated with carbon monoxide to prevent oxidation, and there's some other chemicals and fungicides in there too. Yuck. But maybe you want to try the Gates lab-grown meat. Are you kidding me? If you want real food from a real local farm without hormones, antibiotics, or mRNA, you gotta get this beef. Ted and I love it. Go to switchtoamericawithshemane.com. And one of my team members is standing by, ready to help you get this delivered right to your door. We love these steaks, and you will too. Go to switchtoamericawithshemane.com.
Relish the opportunity to be an outsider because it's the outsiders who change the world.
Perhaps you were born for such a time as this. The Chinese Communist Party is allegedly rewriting the Bible. Why? Because they know how powerful having faith is, and they don't want dissidents challenging authority. Here's an example in the Gospel of John. Jesus famously confronts an accuser of a woman who committed adultery, saying, "Let the one among you who is guiltless be the first to throw a stone at her." Now, the accusers all scatter, and then Jesus says to the woman, "Go and sin no more." Right? We all know that story. The rewritten CCP version of this Gospel of John ends not with mercy, but with Jesus stoning the adulterous woman to death. Joining us live now, International Human Rights and Religious Freedom Organization Hardwire Global founder Tina Ramirez. Tina, thank you so much for joining me.
It's great to be with you, Shemane.
What is going on?
I think that the Chinese Communist Party, for so long, everybody's seen as one of the world's worst human rights abusers, and it's persecuted Christians. Muslims, Uyghurs, Falun Gong, just about everybody under the sun that doesn't believe in their communist ideology. And this is just taking it one step further, not content with sending people to re-education camps to try to indoctrinate them in their communist ideology. Now they're just trying to rewrite the text of the Bible. And it goes a step further. They even tried to rewrite the 10 Commandments into commandments to serve and protect the Communist Party. So it's just gone to a whole nother level where China is essentially trying to not only dictate what you believe, but play God themselves.
It's just unbelievable. So now the Chinese want to control the people. We know that. But here's Miles Gao, I hope I said that right, a Chinese businessman sharing what the former Chinese Minister of State Security told him about the war on religion in China.
All the influence that religions and beliefs have on the whole world is contrary to our Chinese people's pursuit, lifestyle, and to the foundation of the Chinese society. Secondly, since the CCP is dearer to you even than your parents, you can do nothing but to venerate the CCP. You must be loyal to the CCP. Then how can you be loyal to a religion? So that's why all the religions are the CCP's natural enemies.
How do we help these people? My heart just goes out for the Chinese people having to endure this. What can we do?
It really, begs the question. First of all, if they're trying to rewrite the Bible, why would they be doing that if they don't believe in God? I guess
that's a good point.
But I think that you see this with every dictatorship in the world that wants to control people and control the thought and the conscience of man, because my organization is called Hardwired because we believe people are hardwired to worship. And that's essentially what the Communist Party is most afraid of, is the ability of individuals to seek out truth outside of the Communist Party. And that's one of the greatest threats to humanity everywhere in the world, whether it's in North Korea with the Kim Jong-il and Il-sung, dynasty trying to torture and indoctrinate people in their Juche ideology, whether it's the Shahs in Iran, or if you look at ISIS in Iraq where we work. Everywhere in the world, this is what dictators and authoritarian regimes do. They try to control really the heart of man, because that's the most powerful instrument that we have in the world, is seeking truth and justice for ourselves. So this really is an affront on humanity, and everybody should be concerned. And especially here in America, where we have so many liberal groups talking about communism and socialism as though there's something to be admired and attained in this country. And we've got to reject that here, first of all. And then we need to stand up against these dictatorial regimes like what's happening in China, and for the fundamental freedom of conscience, of worship, of religion, of individuals everywhere, especially in China. And if we don't, then we're going to be overwhelmed by that kind of communist leadership, even here in America. And, China is an extremely powerful country. It's the most populous country in the world. They are on the verge of trying to enter Taiwan. They're an extreme threat to us everywhere in the world, from Africa to even along the Panama Canal and as close as Cuba. So we can't keep taking it for granted that the Chinese are just doing this to their own people. This really is a threat to humanity everywhere.
How did you become so interested in this?
I've been passionate about religious freedom ever since reading stories of Christians around the world that were suffering for their faith, and realizing that we have so much freedom here in America. If we don't stand up for it, for people that don't have it, like Paul said, remember those that are in chains as though you were with them and you're suffering, then that is our calling. And when we have freedom, we need to stand up for those that don't have it. And the people in China don't have it. You can't even imagine having your organs harvested by a government simply because you're the wrong religion, or having, your churches shut down because they weren't registered properly. And we can't even imagine the kinds of challenges getting fined for even having church that Christians in China and around the world face. And we need to stand with them. And that's what at Hardwired we do. We help stand with people by training and equipping them to know what their rights are and to know how to defend themselves. We've trained leaders in China, in Hong Kong. It was one of the first countries we went to, and around the world, in some of the most closed just, horrific countries where persecution is most severe, we are training leaders on the ground to defend themselves because, unfortunately, with the kind of leadership we've had in America in recent years, we haven't had people willing to stand up to these kinds of dictators. And we need a renewed leadership in America, and we know what that looks like, to stand up against these dictators and to ensure that people that want to be free are free. And I mean, that's what America is all about. That's what inspires me every day. I believe everybody deserves the kind of freedom that we have. And I think it's how we're hardwired. And I know that God wants it for everyone too. So that's what we fight for.
Well, God bless you for doing that. Were you ever worried when, you're speaking out against China and then you go over to China? Were you ever concerned?
Well, I was in Hong Kong before it was returned to Chinese control, so it was fairly safe then. But, unfortunately, now I don't think I would be. There are certain countries that I wouldn't travel to because I know I would be on the government hit list. But when I was working for the U.S. Congress, I was one of the people that the Chinese government hacked into my email system through Google. And so I met with the FBI and was one of the people that, had to work with the FBI because of being targeted by the Chinese for my work in Congress. I helped build the bipartisan International Religious Freedom Caucus in the U.S. Congress several years ago. And so when I did that, we had many hearings talking about the human rights abuses and the religious persecution occurring in China during the 2008 Beijing Olympics. And then, of course, it's just continued since the violence and the persecution. But so I've always been a person of interest to the Chinese government. I'm not really worried about it at this point. But I do think that it's so important that people like us that have the freedom, the ability to speak out do, because the people there can't. And or if they do, their lives are at risk. And, what they suffer, the little challenges that we might have here getting our emails hacked into or something else are nothing compared to what they face. So I, everywhere I've gone in the world and the people that I've worked with that are suffering, whether they're in Sudan or China or anywhere else, they always just say, we know we're going to be persecuted. All we're asking is that you stand with us. And so for the church and for the people following your show, I mean, just know how strong your prayers, your voice, whether it's on social media or in any other way, writing to your congressman, it is so meaningful to the people on the ground that just want to know that they're not forgotten.
I interviewed somebody who was helping a friend of theirs mother escape, who had been practicing Falun Gong and was put in something called a black prison. And it like you said before, it's amazing to think about people having their organs harvested because they believe in Jesus, or because they practice Falun Gong, which is a type of Tai Chi and yoga and brings inner peace. Why is that so threatening?
I mean, I think that's the question to ask. What are you so afraid of? I mean, if your communist ideology is so great and so powerful and so strong, then what are you afraid of? The reality is they're afraid of people believing in something other than what they want to force on them. And I mean, it's at the root of it. It's all a ruse. They really do not care about anyone in China. They care about themselves and their power, and they're willing to sacrifice human beings. I mean, we saw this obviously during COVID, but with the organ harvesting, with the re-education through labor camps, it's so inhumane. It's so disgusting. I mean, we've seen how they've resent women back into North Korea that are raped and just brutally assaulted and starved to death. It's evil. I don't know how else you can describe it. I think that's what the Chinese Communist Party is all about. And I think that in America, we need to stop pretending that somehow communism and socialism are the ideal standard for people to all have equal rights and values. They're not. They're there to suppress everyone that will dissent from their belief system so that they can have control and power. And, they are collecting resources all over the world. They are fortifying their army. They are moving into strategic locations in Africa and South America. They are building alliances with governments that hate us. And it's something that Americans need to take seriously. And our government, unfortunately, right now is not. They're just a laughing stock in the world, and especially with the Taiwan situation.
They are. Well, Tina, thank you so much for joining me. If people want to find out more, what's your website? I got about 10 seconds.
It's hardwireglobal.org.
Well, thank you again. God bless you for speaking out. More of us need to do that. Thank you. Coming up next, our friend, Dr. Lee Merritt.
Relish the opportunity to be an outsider because it's the outsiders who change the world.
Perhaps you were born for such a time as this.
The opportunity to be an outsider because it's the outsiders who change the world.
Perhaps you were born for such a time as this. You know, if you don't have your health, you can't do the things you love to do with the people you love. And you can't take care of people or pets who aren't feeling well. I do whatever I can to take care of my health so that I have energy through the day. And Ted and I have been doing this experiment where we're putting a scoop of Field of Greens in our water and then sipping it throughout the day. And you know what? We feel better, have more energy, and sleep better too. You should try it. It's fieldofgreens.com and use the code FREEDOM if you want a discount. And who doesn't want a discount? So go to fieldofgreens.com and use the code FREEDOM. Okay, my next guest, Dr. Lee Merritt, has been crucial in the past couple of weeks, helping me, not just the past couple of weeks, past couple of months. She and I have talked about so many things going on in the world today. I'm going to bring her in, the medical rebel, Dr. Lee Merritt. Welcome.
Thanks for having me.
So I want to talk to you about what's going on in the world, but I got to tell you about Happy and tell everybody else, because a lot of people have been asking. So Happy collapsed a couple of weeks ago. We don't know why. And the x-rays that the local veterinarian took just saw spots on his lungs and one particular spot on his heart, and they didn't know why. And so naturally, they said, cancer, maybe cancer. So first person I call is you, is Dr. Lee Merritt. And I'm like, what? Because you've always talked about MS and cancer, they could be caused by parasites. So I wanted to get your protocol, get on the bandwagon. You really helped buoy my spirits so that I could talk to the veterinarians, the experts about my dog. And they were kind of impressed. They said, well, how do you know so much about parasites? I give you Dr. Lee Merritt. How do you know so much about parasites?
Well, it's really weird. I'm an orthopedic spine surgeon by training, and now I've suddenly become the parasite queen. But I'll tell you why. I don't mean to condemn every ID guy, but it turns out that I think that we were just mistaught. And in medical school, years ago, they taught us about parasites, but they said, oh, that's a third world country problem. Well, no, it's not. And I hate to suggest this, so I can't prove this, but it strikes me that what's happening is a bunch of medicine, a bunch of money has gone into the ID and the veterinary community for bioweapons research. I hate to say this. So there's a reason to not tell us this. So I think the education for these guys has been stifled. But parasites are everywhere, and we should have figured this out. Just logically thinking, if your animals get worms and get other kinds of parasites, so do we. The farm kids, when I was growing up in the 1950s and early 60s, the farm kids all got wormed like the animals every month, but we never did. Interesting factoid, when I was in medical school, and I remember this because I thought it sounded so weird, in 1976, they taught me that your risk of MS goes up if you have a lap dog in young childhood before you're 5 years old. Now, why would that be? Why would that have anything to do with this weird neurologic disease that generally most doctors say we don't know what it causes it? Well, it turns out that now we've looked into it. Dr. McDonald, who's a pathologist, I think in Florida, I can't remember where he is, but he did very precise sectioning of the brain and spinal cord of 10 sequential MS patients that died of MS. And 100% of them had parasites. Now, just like your dog, I'm glad Happy looks. I guess that's as happy looks. He's kind of phlegmatic, right? He's kind of even-tempered. He looks even-tempered. Yeah, he's just not
better, but he's not out of the woods. And I wanted to talk to you about that.
There.
Yeah.
But it's a longer term treatment. So what happened is that we've looked at MS patients, for example, and it's just like Happy. We looked at MS patients and we said, oh, we've got these MRIs and they show people have spots on their brain and spots on their spinal cord. Oh, that's MS. Oh, we have other people that have spots all over them. That has to be metastases from cancer because nothing else would do it. But we're not thinking, oh, what else could do it? It could be parasites. And it turns out that is what is being found out. I didn't come up with this. I just started looking around the world and finding all this stuff because I was trying to understand why these young guys in the military, when they get this vaccine, this so-called COVID vaccine, why they're suddenly breaking out in cancer, not just one or two cancers or one cancer. Young people, they don't get cancer. They tend to get, if they do, they get one solitary lesion somewhere. But suddenly they're showing up with multiple cancers, multiple metastases that are considered fatal. What? Do we think cancer just changed its spots suddenly in 2021? No. What happened is, I think, we've knocked down their immune systems, which normally kept their parasites in check. What do the military do? They're out snooping in the brush and they're crawling through the woods and they're eating bad, weird food in weird places and not clean water potentially. And anyway, they probably are loaded with parasites. Just like the child that had the lap dog under 5, they're at higher risk. But now they had a good immune system. These are strong young guys. But now, guess what? We knocked down their immune system and they're getting this. So I think we need to, there's a very good video and it's called Cancerous Parasites. Look it up on YouTube. People can look it up. I have a video that synopsizes that. So you can, my video is The Parasite Paradigm on Rumble, and on my website. But you can look at that video and you can see, they go over it in detail. These guys in Germany have been talking about this for years. These are real researchers at a major institution, and they couldn't get any traction. Well, I think we're going to try and get some traction here, because how many people are dying of cancer that don't need to be? How many people are dying of MS and having disabilities that don't need to? And your dog. How many do we just not thinking about? And first of all, this is an easy, cheap treatment. rather than $1 million worth of studies, why not do that?
Right. Why are they hiding this from us? Somebody sent me a video that said it's misinformation and just be warned, it's misinformation. And a guy had cancer. It said go home, and the doctors told him go home and die. He had, I don't know what kind of cancer, but it was all throughout his body. And he did some research, started taking fenbendazole. Yeah. I want to talk to you about that. And he's cancer free. That video is just one guy's interpretation. What if I said the only way that you could lose weight is to do Zumba, and you don't like to do Zumba, do something else? They're not letting us think for ourselves. They want to dumb us down. It's kind of like, what they're doing in China. They're rewriting the Bible. They don't want you to stand up for yourself. They don't want you to have faith. Why is that happening in the United States? And what can we do about it?
Well, I'm actually speaking at Red Pill in a couple weekends. It's in Des Moines, Iowa, and I'm actually speaking. And my topic is really that we're at war. This isn't by accident. I mean, if you think it's accidental that we're having train rollovers, world's biggest hydroxychloroquine plant just happened to blow up at the start of COVID. We have food places being torched off. I mean, they're suddenly look in Texas where you guys, that big, was it a dairy farm? 15,000 cows or something suddenly burned up.
30,000 cows. They just, and they all died in the same position. I've been a hunter for 33 years. They don't do that.
Right. These things just don't happen. And as FDR said, when anything happens in politics, it was not accidental. It was planned that way. So either you have to see the world as a series of unfortunate events, that everything that happens, the wars, the famines, the economic collapse, that's another one I didn't mention. All of this is just, it's just bad luck and we're just bad luck humans. Or somebody's been playing us for a very long time, and I'm of the latter position. I believe that there's a concerted takedown. And, this vaccination thing that we've gone through just recently, and people are now waking up. Those of us that said early on, even before the vaccine rollout, we said we've looked into this research, the basic research into vaccines of this type. It has lots of problems that they haven't worked out yet. We don't recommend running out and taking it. That's not an unreasonable position. But, no, they told us we were evil disinformation doctors, like you just heard. Oh, that's misinformation. Don't think about that. But now people are seeing that, hey, maybe those dumb guys were right, because look at the people dropping over and look at not only the people dying, but the people with disabilities and all this stuff. But let me tell you, this didn't start with the COVID vaccine. They've been poisoning what we really should be asking ourselves. And I'm asking this of my local government these days. Why are we continuing to poison our children? We are 95% or 97% of the world's fluoridated people are in America. This is an attack on our country. They're poisoning us with fluoride. They know it's a neurotoxin. They're poisoning us with these insecticide sprays in the city, which is now they're linking it to polio. That was really what polio was. That's a neurotoxin. And now they've got they're chemtrailing us. There's no question about that. And now there's all this going on and they're denying us the medicines. It cannot be accidental. They don't. I'll tell you, I mean, years ago, there was a book, it's a book now, it's called Silent Weapons for Quiet Wars. It was apparently a note-taking adventure. Some people took notes at a meeting of these Uber lords, the very, very wealthy people that run this world, that get together like at the Bilderberg meeting every year. And this coincidentally was that first year of their meeting was 1954, and that's where these notes were taken. Maybe not with the Bilderbergs, but with somebody like that. And they look at how they look at controlling the world. It's like the aristocratic idea that they have to control all of us. And at the end of the day, they come out with an idea. They think there are too many of us and we're too populated and we're too greedy. And they have two solutions: benevolent slavery and genocide. And I think if we don't pay attention to what they have in their own words, I think we're not going to win this war. We are in a war, and I think we have God on our side. We can win this, but we have to wake up. And if you're in a war, the people that get killed first are the people with lack of situational awareness. We may not be right about everything, but we're trying to make people aware of what's going on so you can take action. You can research it. You can think about it, decide what you're going to do. Does it make sense to prepare food in your house, for example, water security, all these different things? It's like getting off the plantation.
Guns and ammo and bows and arrows.
Absolutely.
Dr.
The precious metals.
Dr. Lee Merritt, the Medical Rebel, thank you so much. Go to themedicalrebel.com and get all of her information, all of her videos. And it's really helped me an amazing amount with my dog. My dog is part of the family. Sorry.
Yeah.
Lee, thank you again so much.
You.
I know I'm going to be talking to you soon. Stick around, everybody. We'll be right back.
Relish the opportunity to be an outsider, because it's the outsiders who change the world.
Perhaps you were born for such a time as this. You know, when I got sick and almost died from toxic mold poisoning in my MTV Cribs home, I had to change my diet and change everything that I did. And I started doing a lot of research, and I discovered that, you know, the good old plastic water bottles that everybody drinks and sodas you drink in a plastic water bottle. Meanwhile, if you're in Texas right now where I am, it's 110 degrees, but you drive by gas stations and they've got plastic water bottles covered in plastic sitting outside cooking in the sun. You're drinking the chemicals in those plastic water bottles that leach into the water. So I have a solution for you. I found Sentry H2O wellness system that can really treat your water and get rid of all of those chemicals, the VOCs, volatile organic compounds, and so much more. Check out SentryH2O.com and use the promo code HEALTHY10 for a discount. You got to have a discount. Healthy10 for a discount. Take a look at this.
Relish the opportunity to be an outsider, because it's the outsiders who change the world.
Perhaps you were born for such a time as this.
Mike,
Where's Jamie? What do you mean, where's Jamie? I thought she went with you. Little sister went missing. She's been missing for like 30 minutes. Hey, someone needs to get on the intercom and tell them that a girl's been missing. I had a dream last night. I was standing at the gate of this old warehouse. This guy pulls up in a truck. He's staring at me like he wants to kill me. You think God sent you a dream to go break into a warehouse? That's what you're trying to tell me. She could be in there. Someone's in there. If it wasn't just a dream, I'd do something about it.
Joining us live now, writer, director, and star of Dream, Ben Pauling. Ben, welcome.
Thank you so much for having me. So glad to be here.
I got chills watching that. It just hits home. Thank you for putting that out there. What made you want to create a movie like this?
Yeah, so this story was actually birthed in 2020 in the midst of COVID. We're working on several other projects having to do with true stories that we believe in. I'm a filmmaker that likes to focus on stories that actually have to do with real issues going on. But one night, August 6th, actually 4 days from now, 3 years ago of 2020, I had this dream. I was standing at the gate of this industrial warehouse. This man pulled up, and I just sensed behind the blacked out windows of this warehouse that there was children in there. And even though it looked like a commercial business, I had this haunting feeling that something was going on. I woke up from this dream, and from there I had a sense of that it was more than just a dream. It was a message, and I couldn't just shake it. I ended up later on looking for this particular place, and although I never found it, the story was born from that. And the story centers around a young man whose little sister goes missing at a small town fairgrounds event. And 3 years later, she's still missing. Nothing has popped up to resolve this issue. And he ends up having the same dream I had. And from there, it unravels into this story of adventure and action that a group of friends break into a warehouse and possibly uncover a child trafficking ring in their small town.
I went down the rabbit hole, so to speak, at the beginning of the pandemic, January 2020, and I had no idea. Child trafficking was such a big deal. Now, we all know about Sound of Freedom. That deals with a global issue, but it's home. It's here in America, isn't it?
Yep. Yeah, that's what people need to realize is that it's not taking place in one location. It's taking place everywhere, and there's no place that's off limits. We're just living in a different world now than we were at one time, and the market for this is really what's driving it, with the porn industry, with the trafficking, human trafficking being the fastest growing industry in the world, billions and billions, hundreds of billions of dollars. The issue is prevalent to the point where I've talked with people working in these operations in the U.S., and within a several mile radius, you're going to find someone that's a predator, that's a John, that's perpetrating and taking advantage of children. And so it's mind-boggling to think about. But when people realize that there's real evil, I mean, evil knows no bounds. So we shouldn't be surprised that evil takes it to that level. I mean, it's all the same spirit behind it. So it's insane.
This is a spiritual war that we're fighting in right now. So thank you for doing this. Thank you for putting this out there. How can people find it and watch it?
Yeah, so people can partner with us on telling this story. And what's different about what we're trying to do is we're trying to grassroots raise the financing for this so that we can contain full creative control and also the ability to direct relief towards the organizations that we're now starting to work with. One of them being just right out of there of Texas is a man named Troy Brewer, and he has 4,000 kids in his homes throughout the South American below the border. And actually what's interesting is he actually had a dream about one of these rescue girls several months ago that they rescued, and she was mute. She wouldn't talk to anyone. She wouldn't communicate. She was traumatized. He had a dream where he says, "Hey, I'm your papa, And as soon as he met her in the dream, she ran up to him and she started speaking, and she was totally healed. This girl was re-trafficked actually 3 weeks ago, and ripped from a home to where the people caring for her were brutally murdered. And he went out on a mission to recover her. And she was actually sold 3 times in the last couple of weeks. And just yesterday, she was recovered. So this is one of the organizations that we're partnering with. And what's amazing to me on this journey, I've found many cases where these guys working these ops, these ex-military men and ex-government officials, they use people with dreams. I was actually blown away by this. This is not even a far-fetched concept. For me, it was at the beginning.
That's what the devil comes to steal, kill, and destroy, and that's how he's infiltrating us. Where can they find out more about you and your website, Ben?
Yeah, dreamfilm.us is where people can give and help build this dream.
Dreamsfilm.us. Ben, thank you so much. God bless you. I want to help out, so I want you to come back, and I'm going to help promote this film.
Yeah, I'm a big fan of you guys, and tell Ted I said, we're going to put these guys in a stranglehold.
I will, and he will help, and so will I.
Amen.
God bless you.
Amen. God bless you.
Such heaviness. So we got to end with something light. Now, 2 things. If you want to tell me about who you would like to see on the show, or you have a comment about one of our guests, or you just want to get in touch with me and talk about how great my book is, Killer House. It is still #1 on Amazon in chronic pain. You can email me at shemane.chat@gmail.com. And I think do we have one of the emails? We've got one from Molly and Ed. It says, Dear Shemane, first, thank you so much for all you do. My husband and I love your show and also Ted's. Your book is excellent, and it has already been hijacked by my mom before I could finish it. Well, thank you guys so much. Don't email me at shemane.chat@gmail.com to lighten this up. We're going to end on a good note, and I want you to take a look at this.
Excuse me, sir, what are you doing? Coco, get out of there.
Thank you.